I think we should just call ignorance stupidity. There are a lot of people who feel safe within their borders, in their offices, who have no idea of the impact of war. America was one of the most hated countries on the planet after Iraq. And we worked very hard in order to build on the country so that people could trust it again. So that when they think America, they don't think of snipers killing babies, snipers killing toddlers who are being used by extremists in order to carry out their suicide squad motives. And to think that apart from the economy, which will most definitely suffer, as you all know, the military has one of the biggest budgets in America, right? It is the alpha and omega of security, defense, and offense. So what happens when you send out troops? When you send out troops, do you really think about the fact that you're sending out someone's brother, you're sending out someone's sister, you are sending out someone's father, someone's mother, in order to feed your ego? America's profile, as it were, was something to be respected. When the marriage equality bill was passed, the entire planet celebrated along with all 50 states. Right? America, the boogeyman, the killer, was put in the back seat. And people decided they want to strive for the positivity that comes with America. The problem with people who want war is that they are basically playing Monopoly or chess. They are not considerate of the human collateral, not just the innocent civilians that get caught in the crossfire, but the men that are sent out. As it is now, you have vets who are in the streets begging for jobs. You have vets who come from war and end up having to work in low wage for a low wage, as is with the fight for 15. The amount of global participation this year was unprecedented, right? Everybody, and I mean everybody, wanted to become an ally of sorts of the United States. They wanted to replicate what the United States has. The identity that America has as being a killer, a warmonger, was put in the back seat. And smart power, you know what smart power is? Smart power is pressure. Pressure until eventually people come around the table and start to use diplomacy to see how this can be solved so that it won't be a problem tomorrow, or it won't be a problem next year and the other years to come. That's the only way you can do this. There is no way that every single ISIS member can be killed. What's worse is when you do kill them, they seek retribution. That's why you have little girls who are strapped by bombs by their parents. They are that desperate. So the US being an intervening force as apart from an advisory force is very bad for everyone. Syria is familiar with Russia. Russia has vested interest in Syria, right? And let's not forget Russia's past. Communism. How far has Russia evolved when it comes to their political pursuits? So it doesn't strike me as odd that Russia would support Assad, because they feel somehow they can identify to him, because he claims to be someone that wants to preserve the culture of Syrians. But at what cost? The pressure on Assad will continue, and it has to continue, so that Assad can make rational decisions, not based on the fact that he's being backed by Russia, not based on the fact that he's being backed by Iran, but his own position in all of this, and the collateral damage that he has done. And now we have a global refugee crisis. What kind of leadership is that? What kind of an authentic leader would have millions of people risking their lives to flee from him? Let's stop all of this. We are all at the caliber that we are. We are not stupid, right? That kind of thing can be used on lay people, right? But we understand how the politics in Russia works. We understand how the politics in Syria used to work. In fact, we know what even sparked the rebels to start fighting against Assad. Gaddafi was hunted. He was killed and sodomized in front of the whole world. The anger that Syrians have against Assad, what are his fears? He fears that he might end up exactly like Gaddafi or Saddam Hussein. That's what he fears. That's why he wants to make the States an enemy at the moment, and then run behind Russia and hide behind Russia. Because, well, America wouldn't dare to, to keep the agenda of trying to put forth democratic elections and using diplomacy. He is a scared man. He is looking out for himself. Any rational person would understand and see that this is what's happening. So how will Syria benefit from a man who could not stand his ground? And there is this talk of, well, Assad is supported by Russia, so maybe the United States might end up opposing Russia, and it might lead to a world war. The answer to that is no. This was proved by Turkey. Russia did not declare war against Turkey. They can't afford to declare war against Turkey. And they are using modern politics in order to punish Turkey with the sanctions. Right? So if they are using diplomacy there, why can't they use diplomacy when it comes to Syria? There is a sense of detachment from Putin as to ignore Assad, look at the Syrians, and look at what the Syrians are saying. Are most of them saying he's an authentic leader? No. So now we have the pursuit for diplomacy, and Russia wants to bomb up things. I guess, they have the means at the moment. I don't know how their defense budget looks like, but what I do know is an innocent man won't hide. Right? So for Assad, past is past. Right? He won't be convicted for war crimes and such. If he decides to relent and start negotiating with the extremists, as they are called, to put an end to this, meet with the leaders, because he understands those leaders more than any one of us. He understands their motivation more than any one of us. And let's not forget, there is oil in Syria. The United States wants to go green. Britain wants to go green. Germany wants to go green. But who does not want to go green? I'm talking about the country where a scientist supposedly found a cure for homosexuality. So we don't have actual moderates. And we want Putin to bring people to the table and say, this is what we want, and this is the reason. If he's rebutted, okay, but come to a consensus whereby peace in Syria can start. Otherwise, if it's all about war, it will keep going and going, and the damage, the collateral damage that most militaries don't want to admit, that sometimes there are civilians who are killed. And why am I saying this? They have been known for taking captives. So when you bomb them, they use the human shield. That's what's happening at the moment. As hard as it might seem, most people saying we don't negotiate with terrorists. My opinion is, isn't Assad a terrorist in his own right? Why can't he protect his own people? Why didn't he put an end to this when he could? So, as much firepower as a person has, if you don't know how to use the tool that you are given, you might end up blowing yourself up. It sounds very patriotic to say, we need a strong commander-in-chief who is not afraid to lead. Right? It does sound patriotic. I understand where it comes from. But this isn't Pearl Harbor. This isn't 9/11. This is an opportunity whereby these leaders are willing to negotiate. They are willing to negotiate. Everyone is tired of war, them too. But that negotiation needs to be diplomatic. They believe in, the jihad or Sharia law. But I know this for a fact. Even Nelson Mandela was a communist. He believed in the communist ideology. What happened when he came out? He embraced democracy. Because as minute as it might be, it means that a lot of people are included. The people themselves get to have a voice. So we want to protect something called peace in the Middle East. Little kids are dying. The education system is in shambles. There are threats all around. I've been threatened myself. There are people who think we're trying to conjure up World War III. That's not true. We have insight, right? And what we want is for Putin to lead this assault on his end, to put it down and say, this is how, and these are the reasons, so that everybody on the table can come to a conclusive decision and a rational decision. There is no way that the current regime protects the people of Syria. If so, let there be a vote. Let's cease all fire, ceasefire, call it ceasefire. And yes, I'm talking to you guys too, you ISIS guys. I know you can hear me and I know you listen. Let there be a ceasefire. Let's see who the people themselves prefer. And this is not negotiating with terrorists. This is negotiating with people who deep in their heart and mind believe that they are fighting for a just cause. So we can prove them wrong or we can prove them right. Like I said yesterday, the push and the push ended up to some ISIS members who dropped their weapons. And the UN was facilitating them and protecting them. Because when you decide you don't want to be a part of ISIS anymore, you are labeled a traitor, and traitors get killed. Because it's war. People are hardened by this war. Their compassion isn't there. Because they have shot people at point blank. They have seen human blood. So, as they've seen human blood, they might come off as barbaric. But everyone involved in war is barbaric. And I said this with Gaddafi when he got captured and sodomized while people were taking pictures. This is what Assad fears. He fears that he will be charged with war crimes if he steps down from the presidency. That's why he's going around saying, America did this and America did that. And I predicted this and I said it, that eventually he will start biting his nails and the pressure will continue. For the Syrian kids, for the grandfathers and the grandmothers, the fathers and the mothers and the cousins and the uncles, we do not fear terrorists because we have looked behind the mask. Without their masks, they are completely powerless. And with rational thinking and information redistribution being made available to them too, we want to touch their minds so that they can question themselves. How can you be a protector if you keep killing the people that you want to protect? And this is, like I said last time, eventually the people in the system become paranoid. The politicians now, who are the leaders, they become paranoid of their gorillas. Right? When they become paranoid, that's when they start to order outlandish things, because they also fear that someone in there is giving out intel, or someone in there is a spy. And what do? You get harsh punishment, and the leaders who are not thinking straight, they deviate from what they say they stand for. This happens when war is prolonged. The leaders become paranoid because someone could come and take his place. It's the same with ISIS, and to my surprise, it seems to be the same with Assad. But if he decides to follow the way of diplomacy, then he will be safe. He will be left alone. Right? He can even flee the country if he wants. We don't know what the Syrian people might want to do with him. But why would they want to do with him? What is he afraid of if his hands are clean? So no, I don't agree with the Russian approach, because Russia wants to reintegrate Syria, right? That whole region, for their interest. But our thinking is interest aside for now. Let us stabilize this situation within chaos. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. Because there is another group of people called Boko Haram, who most people are underestimating, but who are growing in numbers, intimidating people. So with the backing of the UN, with the backing of the US, seeing as everybody is following along with Russia, just bomb them. And when all of them are dead, there'll be peace, right? While you don't even know where the leaders are situated. Because the logical thing would be to go find the leaders. While the leaders are still there, it won't end. Their subordinates will just take over the throne. But it can all be killed with diplomacy. Because everybody then will be able to show face. And we are more than open to the idea of Assad and the ISIS leaders to sit together with mediators so we can see where the differences lie, and hopefully they can come to a consensus and say, okay, then let's put it to a vote. This is one thing that the Middle East has not had, and that's why it's a continuous cycle of war. They have not had democracy. The people have not taken power in their citizenship. And let's be honest, when you have doctors, physicians fleeing a country. That is it's a light bulb. It's a big light bulb. So looking at it as a Muslim problem doesn't help. In fact, it's plain ignorant. Anybody can fake religion. A lot of the ISIS members are open homosexuals who visit gay bars and gay parties. In fact, one of the attackers in the French mass shooting was also a homosexual. Doesn't this go against the Quran? So that means it isn't really about religion. That's what they want to portray. They want to portray that the Muslims are taking over. But start asking most of these so-called Muslim forces for rebuilding the Muslim empire. Ask them questions based on the Quran. Most of them don't know. In fact, very few are even literate to read and write. So they are pawns. Killing the pawns does not mean anything because the king is still there. So they are misguided, illiterate people who have no other means of getting employment apart from doing what they do best, which is fighting military. So the Bin Laden narrative that was put into people's minds by the Bush administration and the ones before that, we know today it's a fallacy. He was the face of extremist, but he wasn't as involved. It's like having an organization. You might make a statement about the organization, but that's your opinion. It doesn't speak for the whole organization. But the killing of Saddam Hussein, right, was killing the driving force of the extremist. And that's why they ended up leaning towards things like ISIS, because they lost their jobs, like someone said, and they have no real education to back them up for them to find proper employment. And ISIS decided to use that opportunity, right? So most of those people there, especially the older ones, are fighting for their families. They are fighting to get money that they send back. The image of terror is not Muslim. The image of terror are guerrilla wars, guerrilla fighters. That's what they are. If I had to pick out Christian extremist, it won't be hard. But the religion factor needs to go, because all it does is give a lot of people an escape route. Because most of them, the ISIS fighters, they are not devout Muslims. I keep stressing this. Yes, you see them with the Muslim attire and so forth. That doesn't mean they actually practice Islam as most dedicated Islam. Islamic members. For example, where have you seen ISIS take time out for them to pray during the day, as most Muslims would? I think they pray 4 times or 3 times a day. Have you seen this? It hasn't happened. They don't care. So no, I don't agree with saying that Assad is the legitimate leader when he has not been proven by a democratic vote. Let's see other leaders fail and him winning and them becoming the opposition parties, not the opposition fighters. It's all about pressure. And you guys that are in ISIS by force, there are mechanisms and people in place who can help you transition from that, help you to move out, including your loved ones. The mechanisms are there. So, as always, I look at the human perspective. Irrespective of what they call me, they can call me a terrorist sympathizer. So be it. But most soldiers that go out and kill these so-called Islamic extremists, they're also killing, they're also taking lives. And to say, since it's Islamic extremist lives, it doesn't matter, is to be hypocritical of what you are fighting for. We cannot be desensitized because of ISIL extremists. We have seen a lot of liberation wars in Africa. A lot. We have seen the transitions. We have seen diplomacy walking. And we have seen democracy changing and maturing those countries. Syria is exactly the same. If Assad cares, he knows who the leaders are. He will contact them and set up a peaceful meeting that can be mediated by the United Nations because they are unbiased. But I still believe diplomacy is the key. We cannot be hardened by thugs. We can't. Especially since most of them use drugs and don't really they aren't in touch emotionally to say, this is a person's head I'm cutting off. They're high. Have you seen them? Most of them. They seem to be enjoying the ride. But any human being or any human group can be studied and understood. And that's exactly what I'm doing with ISIS. I am studying them to try and understand how this broke out in the first place. I don't buy the whole after Iraq they got angry and decided to start fighting Syria. If they got angry after Iraq, they would have turned on the US soldiers. So no, I don't buy that. What happened here is political opportunists saw an opportunity to indoctrinate and use young people, seeing as most people in ISIS are young. They are easier to manipulate. So no, we cannot be afraid of terror. But not being afraid doesn't mean we have to be stupid. That's what it is. It's stupidity to say, let's go to war without a proper plan, not knowing the outcome. It's stupid. Diplomacy is hard. But diplomacy at the end of the day is how most conflicts were solved. If you want to understand Syria, then understand Africa. Post and pre-colonialist times. As even today, for the European, still view Africa based on outdated systems. Right? The systematic discrimination against Africa hasn't stopped. That's why you get mines that are being backed up by European countries as well as Canadian countries. And in that, the people are not benefiting from their land. Why? Because they are protecting their interest. It isn't blatant colonialism. It's economic colonialism. Right? So you look at Africa and then you look at Syria. What kind of reform are they trying to get to? Because I haven't heard anything conclusive to say, no, this is the right path. And the same goes for ISIS. Beyond your gun and your bombs, what are you actually trying to reform? Do you want to be conquerors of nothing? What do you stand for? And don't lie and tell me it's all for Muslim love and jihad. No, please. Fool others. I already saw through this. When it came to opportunistic declaration of you were the one that did that, you were the one that did that, you were the one that did that, all of them are lies. Taking claim of such things, knowing that if they say they did it, people know that they have the capacity to do it. They are not as strong as most people think. Right? So the mercenary factions having a secure path to move out of ISIS without fearing for their lives or their families is one of the approaches last year I tried to push forward. After Sudan, where a lot of young men dropped their weapons and decided to start attempting entering the education system. Child soldiers. So it can work. I mean, it's still tough right now in South Sudan. It's still tough. But there is actually hope. Now it's trauma of the past that most are experiencing. But reform can work. And this is me saying that I am still dedicated to push for Syria, to start using diplomacy, to kick out superstitious traditional leaders who want to base their leadership of silly things. For example, they started to kill the dark Sudanese. These are now the light-skinned Sudanese because they felt that the blacks, even though they are actually both black, if you look at it in that sort of abbreviation, to kill them off. Ethnic cleansing. That stupidity, right? That stupidity can be overcome by empowering the people themselves. This is what the UN is there for. People are empowered and they can assist the UN in trying to bring peace. Not only bring peace, but also to see the long progress of rebuilding their country. I've heard a lot of young entrepreneurs who have decided that they will plant flowers in war-torn areas to sort of bring that positivity out of people, for them to see blossoming flowers of all kinds. Hope. So I salute my Sudanese correspondents, and I hope with all of the intel based on other conflicts, we can eventually start thinking like thinking people and keep pursuing this difficult task, as most would see it, of using smart power, not just brawn. Because to be in some air-conditioned place where you are so secure, you have all sorts of bodyguards to protect you and declare war, that just shows this detachment. Pure detachment. It's almost like starting Iraq again. Iraq, which they claimed had nuclear weapons, and now they've admitted no, there were no nuclear weapons. They just had to show their might after 9/11 to show we are America and we are strong. Those days of stupidity should end. Is America smart? Are you guys smart? The guys that are trying to push for war. What if your city is the one that people are trying to push war to? Or will you be there in the field watching? No. Most of them say war, 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 but then they don't really care. It's PR. Guys, ignore PR. This is serious. Not World War III serious, but serious in that it stops progress. It's called regime change, because the dynamics have to change. People have to be taught diplomacy. And that is my stance on the whole we are weak or we are cowards for not sending out ground troops. No, it's not about weakness. It's about using the mind, understanding. Let me give a quick example. I'm sure most know about the psychologist who was recruited to understand Hitler, what kind of a man he is, what drove him, and so forth. And this guy was able to determine, based on what he was seeing from afar without being there, he was able to describe Hitler's characteristics on point. The fact that Hitler liked it when he was lying down and his cousin would urinate on him, and he found pleasure in that. All of those twisted things were on point. So Germany was not defeated with mere brawn. It was defeated by minds. If Germany could be defeated by Allied forces, am I to be told that that ISIS has more firepower than Germany did during World War II at its peak in military? Am I to believe that? No. If this is a global issue, then let's make it a global issue. Leave egos aside and start to negotiate the best way forward. We know about this country and that country's interest, right? We are not shallow. We know and we understand. But our primary goal is to bring democracy to Syria. Look across Africa and see what democracy has birthed. It has birthed hope. So please, I'm ready to hear your sides, your vision of how to go forward. Because this is serious, and rhetoric from people who want publicity is very dangerous. Very dangerous. It's time to apply minds to these kind of situations. They are actually happening. And there are actual people involved. Thank you.